championships that is certainly more sustainable. You don't see T1 or T2 cars flying around. I was at the race walk yesterday, not a single plastic bottle, all drink stations properly packaged with sustainable materials that were either recyclable or biodegradable. All these things tell me that we're not going back to the old days. This is going to be the new norm. And for many of those athletes, this is what they've now become used to. As I said, when COVID hit, they were barely out of their teens. So they're going to go away from here thinking that this is completely the norm. And 50% of those athletes, your athletes that are competing here, have no benchmark at all because they weren't at a world, they've never been to a World Championships before. So we can learn from that. They're certainly going to learn from that. And for many of them, this is a more familiar and comfortable territory than it is for many of us. I like quoting. Graham Greene, the great British novelist, his wife actually said something which in a way quintessentially sums up where we've all been in the last 3 years, and that is that life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about learning to dance in the rain. I think I would add to that we didn't only learn to dance in the rain, we actually learned to sing in the rain. And I'm not encouraging Willie Banks to now go into any jingle or song that he might... yeah, exactly. Thanks, Willie. Stand up, Willie. Willie, just stand up. Leadership is a really interesting concept in the world. Some people follow people because they're charismatic. Some people follow them because they're out in the field making sure their fellow competitors are all looked after. We follow Willie purely out of curiosity. But Willie, it's great to have you on the council, and I'm going to talk about Willie in a few moments, and sparing his blushes because, of course, he is the choreographer of not only our world plan, but the implementation of so much that is contained in there. And look, the one thing that we have learned, if we've learned to dance and sing in the rain, we've also learned we've learned a lot about ourselves. We've learned a lot about our sport. We've learned to be adaptable. We've learned to be flexible. We've learned above all to be resilient. And I think we've learned to be brave, and I think we've learned to be creative. And I recognise in many of the member federations and area associations that we're doing things that, if invention is the necessity, as they say, is the mother of invention, we haven't always been dragged towards these things willingly, but I think we had to do it out of necessity. And the one thing that really encouraged me and made me so proud to be president of this sport was just the sheer creativity and resilience that you as member federations brought to bear. You kept your domestic competitions going when there was little or no opportunity for your athletes to be able to travel to international competitions. You didn't just keep what was existing in your calendars alive, you created new opportunities. And Jean Clark is sitting there. Again, let me compliment Jean. Jean, is president of the federation that was voted amongst our peers on the council as the Federation of the Year. And why, Jean? Because you kept doing things that were creative and resilient, and you thought out of the box. And that's what we've all had to do over the last few years. Let me just really talk a little bit more in a funny sort of way about where we are in the sport and where we are in our federation. And putting aside all the challenges that we have here, and again, let me thank you as member federations, because, let's just think about the logistics of what we're trying to deal with here. Every World Championship in the past has had, a stadium capacity of 40,000 plus. Here, we're down to 20,000. If you think about all the commitments that we have to make in terms of media and commentary points and the way we've had to house photographers that would normally be on the infield. Those of you who are familiar with Haywood Field, and certainly the new Haywood Field, will know that the internal choreography of our field events is very different from anywhere in the world. It is tight. 20,000 seats then becomes 15,000 seats. And those 15,000 seats have to accommodate all of you and our council. And let me thank you, because I know there have been frustrations here. I know that we haven't been able to do for our federations what we would normally have been able to do in a previous World Championships. And let me thank you for understanding that. Look, it's not easy, and it's really important for us that you are here in numbers, and you are here being able to bring as many of your support teams as possible. It just has not been possible this time. But what I do know is that once we've got the seats down to 15,000, including council, we're actually down to 12,000 sellable tickets every day. I can't think that there are Diamond League meetings that have bigger facilities than these World Championships. And that's not to say these World Championships won't be outstanding. They will. I think we got just a small glimpse of that on the first day. The atmosphere was fantastic, the competition was terrific, and we've only really touched the surface of this. I genuinely think these World Championships will go down as one of the best World Championships, and already I'm talking to athletes who are saying that in terms of being an athlete-focused games, the facilities that they have, the workout facilities, the ability to walk from their halls of residence. Yeah, okay, some of them don't have air conditioning, but you know, there are challenges there. But the ability for them to be on site is one that they will readily trade for journeys that take them 20, 30, 40 minutes across town, particularly to training venues. So all these things matter. And in a way, being more courageous and being more ambitious and using athletics and athletes to connect and help us through this period has been something that has been really, really important for us. And connecting is probably the most important thing that we can do as a sport at the moment. Engaging with you, engaging with your stakeholders, your communities, your athletes, and to make sure that they, where possible, are telling the story for us. It's so much better when the athletes and our stakeholders are able to tell the story. You know, everybody, if I stand up and I make the obvious points that I try to all the time, people will say, well, he's president of athletics, he would say that, wouldn't he? But to have third parties in our corner, being given the information and the communications and the strategies and the content, is hugely important. And let me just pick up on 3 or 4 projects internally that we think are really imperative in helping us engage just more broadly across the landscape. Kids athletics is huge, and that's not just simply about identifying talent pathways so that we can identify those kids and do the famous playground to podium. It's also because the health agenda across governments has changed. You will know this, I know this, that rather belatedly, rather late in life, many governments have recognised they do have a responsibility to look after the health and well-being of many of their communities. Athletics, I would say this, wouldn't I think is best placed of any sport on the planet to help those health agendas both locally, regionally and nationally. And kids athletics is a very important part of that, because you know as well as I do, if you get kids into patterns of exercise, and ideally through the mother of all sports, which is track and field, then you're not just creating the medalists that we're going to see over the next few days, you're actually creating patterns of exercise and health and communities that have got boosted immune systems, because we know exercise makes a huge difference. Athletics can sit there. We've got an e-learning platform, which again, in simple terms, allows us to share the skills and share your skills more broadly, and that's crucial. You know, we are only as strong as the information that we have and the ability to absorb it, to adapt to it, to turn it round and to make it practically applicable, and that's why our e-learning platform is so important. And both kids athletics and the e-learning platform is now being readily accepted as pretty much being best in class. Willie, I'm going to come to the World Plan. Be ready, because we've set so many of our ambitions and they are articulated in the World Plan. And the World Plan was yours. The strategic plan was created internally by our HQ teams. Yes, we ran it through the council, we ran it through the executive board, but that's really how we direct the sport internally and make sure that John and his teams are on point and have the core pillars to make sure the federation is in the shape to continue to go on serving you. But the World Plan, what is your plan? It was created by us and you, responses in the thousands. Thank you for that. And they were prompt responses and they were really helpful responses. It was then signed off by the Congress, again you, and that's the roadmap for the next 10 years. And the World Plan has set some really ambitious, achievable, measurable targets. Simple things. What are we trying to achieve here? We want, for instance, across our e-learning platforms, 5,000 new coaches, fresh coaches, 3,000 officials, administrative staff, officials joining our training courses. That's hugely important. And it's already paying off. And why do I know that? Look at the quality of the cities that came to the table to want to deliver our 2025 World Championships. Not at any time in my life as a council member from 2003, Datlan and I joined on the same day. We moved around the council pretty much seat by seat, and right up to the point I became president and Datlan a vice president and now president of Asia. It's really important that we have the ability to deliver all these projects on the ground, and that is why seeing those cities, the Nairobis, the Singapores, the Tokyos, the Silesias coming to the table on wanting to share, wanting to deliver our championships tells me that the investment that we've put in the last few years is beginning to pay off. And it's really about finding more people, more coaches, more athletes, more clubs and schools to use those tools. Those tools are there. Please use them, because it will allow you to connect, it will allow us to connect with you, and it will allow all of us to share, those experiences that we really do think can grow the sport. Let me talk a little bit, just in conclusion, about where I think the opportunities for us sit at this moment. And let me start again by referring to the World Plan. We have the World Plan, it is in place. Willie is now chairing a group of council members and some of you out here that are helping us implement that. We don't want this just to be an academic piece of work that we sort of dust down every few years and cherish only for its irrelevance. It has to work on the ground, and if it does work on the ground, it will need member federations to help us do that. So let me tell you what the World Plan isn't. The World Plan is not a tightly prescriptive roadmap. It is not a plan that you have to deliver every facet of at exactly the same time and at exactly the same level. Do leave this room knowing that you are not being crammed into a program of things that do not remotely equate to the realities of your federation on the ground. For some of you, it will be about medals. For some of you, it will be about participation and community engagement. For some of you, it will be about driving the sport through your schools. For some of you, it will be aligning your federation to those governmental challenges and agendas in health. It is not about a one-size-fits-all. It can't be. There are 200 and something federations, well over, the largest Olympic sport in the world. We can't suddenly sit here and say that World Plan has to be delivered in exactly the same way as you would deliver anything else. It is very different, and we have to respect the difference. But what I do know is you are all better placed than any other element of our sport to deliver on those programs. So use the World Plan, use it to map your own journey, pull from that plan what you think is fundamentally most reliable and valuable to you on the ground. And if I look at that, and I come right the way back to my first observation, not only are we celebrating the performances of the Dominican Republic and Peru, but behind that sits another statistic. All 4 medals that were won yesterday were won in different continents on the planet. So that tells me that the roles and responsibilities between World Athletics, between our area associations, between the member federations, is something that is absolutely crucial. And we need to continually focus on making sure that the best and the most appropriate elements of our sport are delivering what is most applicable to you as member federations. You, the member federations, are the end users, and we have to always remember that. We can enable, we can invest, we can support at World Athletics. We can work as we do closely with our area associations, and I'm delighted to see our area presidents in here today because they understand the umbilical linkage between World Athletics and the member federations and the conduit and the important elements that they play in all that. So over the next few days, we've used the opportunity for all of you to be here. Never let a good family gathering go entirely to waste, so we will be having member federation sessions, and they're very different in their scope and style and scale, and I'm hoping to be joining some of them, and I hope you can join pretty much all of them. Again, some will be more applicable to you. So we've got sessions on competitions, we've got a very important session on safeguarding. Remember, by 2023 we will be mandating all our federations to have a safeguarding policy, and I'm delighted that Abby Hoffman and our safeguarding team, some of you sitting in the room have contributed in a big way to that, is driving that forward. Jackie sitting here, we have a communications and a social media information session, and again, you know, that's a really important element of how we market and we communicate the values and the excitement of our sport. We have a great deal in common. The one thing that I think we recognised through the COVID months, when we were all forced to work probably more collegiately and more collaboratively with technology that none of us were particularly familiar with, is that operationally we've become closer and emotionally we've become closer. And so my final message to you is one heartfelt thanks for sticking with us, with the sport through thick and thin, being as creative as you were, as resilient as you were, and I think we've all come out of this stronger. I think this sport is stronger in so many ways than it's ever been, and I think we will see the performances here, and we remember we have an extraordinary 5-year stage in the most broadcastable time of the year, and I know I'm not always recognising the challenges in the southern hemisphere, but what I am focusing on here at the moment is in the northern hemisphere we will have athletics centre stage. We go from here, Calais, the under-20s, we've got the Commonwealth Games, we've got the European Championships, you've got your area association championships as well. Next year we're straight back into a World Championship year, I know, yeah, 2 back-to-back. Budapest 2024, Paris, athletics, again, centre stage 25, we now know we're going to be in Tokyo 26. We have the creative juices of John and his teams trying to figure out what we can use and do in that year, which we sort of refer to as the fallow year. There aren't too many fallow years, but we really do want to create another big moment in athletics. 27, the same, the World Championships, and 28, we're back in Los Angeles for a great moment here at an Olympic Games. So athletics is centre stage, and we really do have to squeeze every bit of juice out of that fruit in the next few years. That's for the next few years. Let me just thank you for being here this morning and wish you and your teams and your athletes the very best of luck, because as I said in the opening ceremony remarks last night, the best of luck because your athletes are the best at what they do, and thank you, and please make sure they understand how grateful we are at headquarters that they are providing the platform for all the things that we need to do. I'll be in the warm-up area, so if you're down there, do come and introduce me to your teams and your delegations, and pretty much I'll do that every day. Between now and the end of the championships, not because I have to, but it's actually far more interesting than just sitting in the stand. Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to answer any particular questions that you might have. Questions within reason, of course.